The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, this is Greta Brower with PM Square. We're going to start the webinar in just a couple minutes here, so please stay tuned while a few attendees are still rolling in, and we will get started shortly. Thank you.
Hello.
Okay everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. There's still attendees rolling in, but we're a few minutes after, so let's just get on with it here. So welcome to our Moving from Analytics to AI webinar. My name's Greta Brower. I oversee the delivery of our professional services at PM Square, and today I'm going to be your webinar MC. With me also are Chris Penn, the Chief Data Scientist at PM Square Partner Trust Insights, as well as Ryan Dolly, Senior Solutions Architect and Product Manager here at PM Square, and very frequent webinar speaker. So if you're following along with our webinar series, you've probably heard from him very recently. Also, I just want to note both Chris and Ryan are also recognized as IBM champions in the space, so we're very lucky to have them both here with us today to talk AI. Okay, so what's on the agenda? Today's webinar, we're going to start by first covering what is AI in the context of analytics and how we can leverage AI to improve our analytics. Then we're going to move into a demo. First, Watson Studio, and Chris is going to show you the latest AI features in the newest release. And then after that, Ryan's going to demo the latest AI features in Cognos Analytics. If you have any questions throughout this session, please submit them through the GoToWebinar pane on the right side of the window. At the end of the last demo, we're going to go through and answer them. And if there are any that we don't get to, we will email the full list of questions and answers out afterwards to the list of attendees. Okay, so who is PM Square? I'll keep it really short because if you're on this webinar, you probably already know who PM Square is. But just to summarize for any newbies that may be out there, PM Square is a gold level IBM partner focused on the data science and AI portfolio stack. So this includes products like Cognos Analytics and Planning Analytics, and another product that you may or may not be familiar with, but we're going to discuss today, which is Watson Studio. And what this means is that we assist customers with all of their analytics initiatives, things like modernization exercises, meaning both on the technical or change management aspect for upgrades. We also specialize in training, and we do a lot of assessment type activities like health checks, security audits, environment tuning, and so on. We've got a great team of award-winning consultants, people like IBM celebrity Cognos Paul. Our managing partner, Dustin Adkison, is the author of the leading book on Cognos Analytics. We've got 3 or 4 IBM champions on staff, and just all around a really great team of consultants if you need any help in that area. In addition to professional services, we also have products, one of which is Thrive, which analyzes error messages, report performance, and makes recommendations on how to improve your environment and increase user adoption in a very proactive way, both for the IT and the line of business side. So Ryan Dolly, who's speaking today, he's our product manager on Thrive, so feel free to reach out to him if you have any questions, or even, it's not really the topic of the webinar, but feel free to ask in the questions pane. We also help with understanding your IBM license management, so making sure you're in compliance, software renewals, things like that. So with that said, we're going to jump in here because we've got a jam-packed agenda, and Chris Penn will take it away with AI and analytics, and then a demo of Watson Studio. So Chris, I'm going to hand it over to you right now.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
There you go.
All right, let's show screen 2. Should have. Okay, let's jump right in. So, as many of you know, in the next year, the powers that be we answer to will be asking for us for 3 things: better, faster, and cheaper. And we want to see where business stands on that front. So let's tackle better first. In 2020, the year that's just ahead of us, we as a civilization are going to be cranking about 50 zettabytes of data, which is an unimaginably large number. To give you a sense of how big a zettabyte is, if you started binge watching Netflix 55 million years ago, you'd just now be getting around to using 1 zettabyte. We're going to create 50 of these this coming year. More importantly, in the 2019 Price Waterhouse CEO survey, CEOs were asked, thinking about the data that you personally use to make decisions about long-term success and durability of your business, how important are the following? When we look at what CEOs had to say, data about customers and clients' preferences and needs, financial forecast and projection, brand and reputation, risks in the business, we are being asked to create better data. And what are we delivering? The yellow lines on this lower section here indicate that no, about 1 in 5 CEOs is getting what they want. So that is not a formula for success for us. So we have a problem with data quality. But at least we're getting faster, right? Well, the world is getting faster. We are not. In fact, from that same CEO survey, CEO said that there is such a massive skills gap in their organizations that innovation is being stifled, people costs are rising, quality is slipping. So we're not getting faster. Hopefully things are getting cheaper, right? Well, CEOs are really, really, really pessimistic about the challenges in the next 12 months. They see operational efficiencies and organic growth as being the main drivers of revenue growth, and folks are just starting to buckle down and put up the shields, if you were. When you look at the confidence in business growth, in revenue growth, CEOs are very, very pessimistic about the next 12 to 18 months. So we're not better, we're not faster, we're not cheaper. That's going to lead us to not a great place to be, right? A bit of a disaster. So how do we fix this? Well, unsurprisingly, the reason you're here for this webinar is in part by using artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence like IBM's Watson Studio systems and many of the other parts of the IBM portfolio. AI promises us 3 really simple things: acceleration, accuracy, and automation, also known as faster, better, and cheaper. AI is much, much faster than we are processing data, especially large amounts of data. It is much better at processing the data with high quality and the ability to dig out insights that we can't, just as humans, we just can't do. And I always ask this when I do this keynote publicly, how many of you have at least one task every week that you're like, this is not my favorite thing to do. This is very repetitive, very boring, not a lot of value add. Without fail, almost everybody has something on their to-do list that they wish would go away, and those are the things that we can use we can use AI to fix. Most importantly, and something that's going to show up at your desk sooner rather than later. When asked specifically about artificial intelligence, CEOs said that they believe AI will have a larger impact on business than the internet. Think about that for a second. A bigger impact than the internet. Globally, about 63% of CEOs believe it will have a bigger impact than the internet. And that's astonishing because we all are living in the internet on a daily basis. And so this is just a crazy, crazy figure. So what is this stuff? We've heard this term a lot. What is artificial intelligence? The short version is that it's about getting machines to think like humans. If you look at how a human develops over time, right, there's sensory pathways, very basic things at the start of life. Then there's language, and then eventually higher cognitive functions. And this mirrors the path that we take on our way to artificial intelligence. All AI is built on a foundation of statistics and probability. One of the things that we love to remind people, AI is math, not magic. It is not magic, it is just math. Stats and probability form the foundation of it. When you put together statistical techniques in certain orders, you get what things are called algorithms, a process that gives you a predictable known outcome. We use algorithms every single day, right? When you get up in the morning, you have an algorithm for your day. And I would guess, like, almost all of you have certain things you just do out of habit, right? There are just known patterns, like what piece of clothing you put on first. Some people put the top on first, other people put the bottom on first, a few weirdos put their socks on first, but it's all the same, right? It's an algorithm. Now, where we make the transition into AI is with what's called machine learning. Machine learning is different than regular software because unlike regular software where we write the code and it spits out data, like everything from your word processor to the video games on your smartphone, machine learning reverses that. We give the machines data and some known statistical techniques, and it writes its own software. So let's look at a couple of very quick examples of this. Imagine for a moment that you had a table full of these colored blocks, and we wanted to be able to do different tasks with those blocks. The first branch of machine learning is called supervised learning, where we're looking for a specific outcome. So if you trained a machine to recognize the color red by showing it red things over and over again, eventually it could take these blocks and figure out which ones were red. That's supervised learning. IBM's most famous example of this was from 2013, I think. The University of Tokyo's Oncology Center worked with Watson to try and diagnose and fix a patient who had leukemia. The doctors were treating this patient. They were not getting better. So IBM took the patient's genome plus 233,000 journals of oncology and fed it to Watson and said, figure out what's wrong. Supervised learning. We know what we're looking for because we have the data. Figure out what's wrong. And of course, they found out they were treating the wrong kind of leukemia. They changed the treatment, made a full recovery. What's really cool about that, going back to the 3 A's of AI, is that Watson did it in 11 minutes. Right? It would have taken a lifetime to read that many journals. And in 11 minutes, they had the answer. The second branch is called unsupervised learning. And this is where instead of maybe the blocks and finding specific color, maybe we just want to make sense of this data. Maybe we can sort it by colors, all the blocks. We can sort them by shapes and sizes. But no matter what we do, we're trying to make sense of data and digesting it down. A real simple, kind of funny example is I was running late for a staff meeting. I used to work in public relations, and I had this client. They had like 2,600 articles that we needed to summarize to tell the client, hey, here's what's being said about you. So using unsupervised learning, in this case, a technique called text mining, we're able to pull the meaning out of all that, reduce it down to one chart, and still make it to the meeting on time. Now, when you start combining these techniques together, the supervised and unsupervised learning, you get what's called deep learning, where you're taking many different layers of machine learning, many different types of these machine learning algorithms, and gluing them together like a stack of pancakes almost. And instead of syrup, it's data that moves from layer to layer to layer. The net impact of that is that we get machines that can think like us, only faster, better, and cheaper. So that, in a nutshell, is what AI is. Stats and probability lead to algorithms, which lead to machine learning, which leads to deep learning. Now, why do you need to know this, right? You're probably not going to become a programmer or a developer anytime soon. We think this is important for you to understand because when you go to any technology trade show now, especially in the B2B world, but in general, in business in general, everybody's slapping the label AI on every single product. AI-enabled doorbells, AI-enabled pizza boxes, AI-enabled security systems. And about 35% of companies that say that are lying. The Financial Times did a study last July and said that after investigation, 35% of companies that claimed they were using AI didn't have a stitch of it anywhere. So knowing this terminology gives you a detector that our Spanish friends would say is a detector of excremento de toro, right? Understanding the language lets you ask better questions of vendors and be able to challenge them on their claims. Now, as Greta said, we're going to walk through some use cases with Watson Studio. I'm not actually going to do a live demo because it's not so much fun to watch someone type, right? So we're going to go through some cases that we did earlier this week to prepare it. So let's talk about the tool first. Watson Studio is a comprehensive all-in-one environment where you can do data science and AI. And the two are very, very closely related. Watson Studio, the good news for many of you, especially those who have some experience with SPSS and Cognos and stuff, is it incorporates chunks of some of IBM's most popular applications. So you'll see dashboards in Watson Studio that are a subset of what's available in Cognos. You'll see a modeler built into Watson Studio, which is a subset, about 80–85% of the functions in regular IBM's SPSS modeler. Decision optimization, which is a subset of CPLEX, has just been added in. And individual services from IBM's Bluemix cloud services have also just been added in. Things like natural language processing, visual recognition, and things like that. All these are functions that are available in Watson Studio. For those of you who have companies where you have already a robust data science practice, Watson Studio also supports R and Python. So the R computing environment, for example, it looks like this, Python notebooks through Jupyter. So if you've already got existing code that is working well for you, you don't have to just throw it all out and start over. You can import your existing code right into Watson Studio in environments that your developers are very familiar with and comfortable with, and be able to turn them from ideas or betas or proofs of concept into production systems. Because once you build something in Watson Studio, your next step is to turn it into a production model using Watson machine learning, and then monitor it in production with Watson OpenScale. So there's sort of this pipeline that's built right in, and it can be set up in any number of configurations. So let's look at some business problems that Watson Studio can address. Things like untapped data, unknown entities or problems, unclear data, unfocused analytics, and being unprepared for the future. The first example, untapped data, using Watson Studio, either the natural language classifier, or in this case, I used some open source code. I took 5,000 job ads, the text from those job ads, and then I took 17,000 calls from this recruiting company's call center. This is a company that does truck driving recruiting. And we looked at the language that each is using. Here we see the job ads. It's all about the requirements, the CDL license, the type, the class, the decorations, all that stuff, hazmat. And then when you look at what the candidates are saying on the phone, they're talking about starting pay, are you home on the holidays, what's the work week, things like that. What we notice very quickly is that what's in the job ads and what the candidates actually care about are two completely different things. And as a result, this company's job applications are not as impactful as they could be. Now extend this to your customer service, your customer experience, your sales, your marketing. Is your messaging different in different places? And if so, you can use Watson Studio's technologies to start to pick that apart and realize, oh, we're not talking about the things that our audience wants to hear about, whether it's HR or whether it is customers. You can find those gaps and realign them. Second example, using Watson Studio, solving problems. We have a lot of data, but the data is difficult to work with. So this is a project we did actually for IBM. We flew a drone over a bunch of houses in a neighborhood, and using the visual recognition component in Watson Studio, built a visual classifier to say, like, does this roof have solar panels on it? Now you can imagine, yes, you could just drive around, and but you're not allowed to walk around people's yards and things. So by being able to use drones and the Watson visual recognition service, we're able to classify with a 92% low accuracy whether rooftops had solar panels installed on them. Imagine the implications for insurance companies, for solar energy companies, for property companies, real estate, to be able to build a classifier with no coding. That's the important part about this technology. Is in Watson Studio, you provision it, you set up your classifications, and you drop in your photos, and no code involved. Watson does the training and then gives you an API to deploy it. And we have a link here to a YouTube video if you want to watch the whole process. It's longer than we have for today, but you can actually watch the walkthrough of that. So that's example number 2 with what you can do in Watson Studio. Number 3, clearing up unclear data. This is an example of doing RFM analysis. Those of you who use SPSS, you should be very familiar with RFM analysis, but now instead of just having the model, you can turn it into a pipeline, bring your data in, stream it through an SPSS model, and then turn that into a production Watson machine learning model that you can have ongoing data being processing and ongoing recommendations saying this belongs in one of these clusters. This was something we did for an oil company where they wanted to classify their customers, and the immediate takeaway was anyone in cluster 4, those are the folks this company's got to keep happy, because that's their bread and butter. And the people who are high frequency, high recency, super high monetary value, keep those people happy. And then the tactical recommendation for this company was, for everybody else in the other clusters, what can we do to get them to either buy more stuff to increase their monetary value, buy stuff more frequently by reminding them that this company exists, and keep that recency, keep that current, keep them current with strong customer experiences and customer service. So RFM analysis, one of many different modules that's built into the modeler inside Watson Studio. And again, if you have SPSS background, it is going to be a slam dunk for you just to be able to transition into the environment with no trouble. Number 4, understanding what KPIs and data points matter. Now, this is a marketing example. This is something that we specialize in. This is taking Google Analytics data and saying what channels in marketing deliver conversions. So in this example, we see that organic search is about 27% of all conversions. It's impacting that. We see public speaking another 16%. And we see that the order in which these things occur, just with existing Google Analytics data fed into Watson Studio through the data refinery, and then using one of the gradient boosting algorithms to essentially figure out this is what matters. And we can do this with both where people are coming from to assess, like, should we be spending more money on Facebook? The answer is no. Should we be spending more money on Instagram? Also no. Should we be spending more money on email? Yes, we should. So understanding what drives performance. And again, if you have data that is sequenced in transactions over time, you can apply this technique. Here's another example using pages on a website. What pages do people visit on the way to converting? Being able to sequence that out and understand these top 5 or 6 pages are the ones that you recommend to people. Now, one of the most amazing new techniques inside Watson Studio, and the one that I'm personally most excited about, is called Auto AI. If you've again, if you've heard me talk about SPSS as modeling, it's a drag and drop environment where you put all the pieces together, the typing, the auto data prep, maybe you choose the algorithm, but that's laborious. That's time intensive. And if you don't know what all the different little pills on the left-hand side of SPSS Studio do, it can be a little intimidating. Auto AI is IBM's solution for this. Drop in your data set in like a CSV format, tell it what outcome you're after, either classifying something into different buckets or doing that driver analysis, mathematically what things make the most sense. And it does the work for you. You'll see here, I dropped in the data. I said this is a binary classification. I was doing lead scoring, in this case, good or bad. And the goods were in one bucket, the bads were in another bucket. Watson went through, chose the algorithm from about 100 different algorithms. It built 4 pipelines. And then you can see along the outer ring here, these are all the individual statistical and probabilistic techniques that it tried to find, in this case, the lowest ROC score for a classification model. This would take a data scientist doing it manually at least a couple of hours, if not more. Watson had this done in 20 minutes. In another example, doing that, trying to understand your most valuable customers, this was using Auto AI for regression. And again, 11 minutes to get to that answer, right? It's super, super fast, really, really easy to work with. And coming soon, within, I believe, before the end of the year, once Watson Studio builds a model, it will then break it down and pass it back to the SPSS modeler built in. So if you want to add your own specific tweaks on top of what it did, it will do 95% of the heavy lifting and then let you do the fine tuning and polishing. So incredibly powerful stuff. And finally, in terms of forecasting, again, Watson Studio has 80 to 90% of the functions available in SPSS modelers. So in this case, we're taking time series data, doing our typing, building a time series forecast, and then being able to output that into models that can help us either manage data in production or just analyze the data as is in ad hoc queries. So in this case, we're taking search data when people are searching for certain terms and being able to turn it into a forecast, a time series forecast going forward, clean it up a little, make it look a little bit prettier, and then understand when are people going to be typing in these terms. Now, we chose the terms Outlook out of office, Gmail out of office, and then sort of out of office message template as a sort of examples of some of these terms. What we want to know is, when are people going to type that most into Google? Because when somebody types in the term Outlook out of office, what are they about to do? Yeah, they're going on vacation, which means that we don't want to market to them. We don't want to send our salesperson to a field visit to them. We don't want to do a whole lot with them because they're not there. So using time series forecasting, we can look ahead and see these are the weeks when we know people are going to be in the office, or the weeks when people are going to be out of the office. And here's, if you take nothing else away from this, the first half of this presentation, just screen capture this slide, because in 2020, these are the weeks that you want to do stuff, the week of January 12th, April 26th, September 13th, and October 18th, and the weeks you don't want to do big stuff. Don't blow your ad budget on something the week of March 8th, or June 21st, or July 5th, or December 20th. Those are the weeks that just nobody's going to be home. And again, we pulled this together right inside of Watson Studio. Very, very simple, very, very easy. So those are the major problems that AI solves, and using Watson Studio as the foundation for a lot of that. The important thing for you to know is that you need to start now. If you're doing any kind of work with AI, you heard that machine learning needs data to learn from. So the sooner you start, the more data you'll have. If you wait, if you delay, and you don't collect data sooner, and a competitor does, they automatically have a data advantage, which is very hard to overcome. One of the reasons why you see huge technology companies like Google and Facebook and IBM and Microsoft and Amazon having such insurmountable advantages in the marketplace is because they have decades of data that it would be almost impossible for any other company to catch up to them, at least from a data perspective today. There's a 7-step process for how you get there. And I'll cover it very briefly here, but feel free to reach out to the PM Square team if there's something you want to have us talk you through in much more detail. Start with that data foundation. Find, clean, and prepare your data. Know where it is. 90% of companies who want to do the AI get stuck here. It's just a tough place to get out of. Becoming a measurement-driven, a data-driven company. That's a cultural thing, people and process, rather than a technology issue. The same is true for building qualitative research capabilities so that you understand why some things happened. No matter how good the AI is, it can't crawl in somebody's head to understand why they made a certain choice. From there, we go into process automation to free up time so that you have the ability to work on this stuff, because AI is a profession unto itself. Building data science capabilities, machine learning capabilities, and eventually getting to AI. So I think we'll stop there and turn it over to Ryan. I do want to say, however, that sort of very critically, if you are not thinking about AI right now, you are going to be behind the 8 ball. When you look at companies that have introduced AI initiatives around the world, again, this is back from that PwC survey, there are many, many, many places around the world which are starting AI initiatives. And it doesn't take a lot to get started, right? All you need to do is look in Watson Studio and see what are the different kinds of things that I could be working on in order to make my first AI projects work. But you've got to get started, because everyone in the world, in anywhere in the world, here's Africa, 16% of companies in Africa have started an AI initiative, at least in some limited use case, right? If you are not on the yellow and red bars in this graph, you're behind. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ryan.
Great, thanks, Chris.
There we go.
Okay. Chris, can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
Excellent. And can you see my screen?
Yeah, it looks great. I see Cognos 11.
All right, cool. Yeah, I think so. Thank you, Chris, for that great overview of kind of where things stand with AI, and I would really echo some of Chris's thoughts about the Watson Studio product, particularly things like Auto AI. Those of you who on the call who have who know me know that I'm a data warehouse and BI guy, right? I'm not a data scientist, and so in my experience working with Watson Studio, I have installed it and played around with it and worked with some customers to deploy it, and so I've seen firsthand how powerful some of those tools can be, particularly for someone who's kind of AI, is kind of aware of AI and AI or data science concepts, but is not a data scientist, right? The Watson Studio really has a very good set of features built in to help build you up to that level. Now, with that said, of course, everybody, many of you are probably Cognos customers, and you're interested in seeing, okay, well, when we talk about something like Watson Studio, that's all about full-blown AI and machine learning management and deployment. How does that compare to what we offer in Cognos today? And I think the key thing to understand is where Cognos fits into this whole picture is in 2 places. First of all, when you're building things in Watson Studio, of course, you can export data. You can write data to a relational database, for example, and then Cognos can access that relational database to help you distribute the insights you're getting from your AI project. So that's the first way. But I think the second way really gets to something that Chris said about just data literacy in general. And what you have in Cognos today is going to be something that is really going to help you work with your end users to increase their data literacy, their understanding and knowledge of what is possible in this realm, and to get their feet wet, thinking about things like natural language-based data discovery or predictive forecasting, things like that, in a very low friction environment, where then you can you can take those insights from something like Cognos and then use that as the springboard into a bigger AI project, right? So let's take a look at what some of those things are in Cognos. As I'm going through this, of course, please send any of your questions in. We'll be answering questions at the end of the presentation. And then I'll note I'm really going to focus on showing and explaining some of those kind of AI, machine learning, or data science-based features of Cognos. So I'm not really going to get into building data modules or how do you build a pretty dashboard or anything like that. I'm just really going to tailor it to what those features are. So starting with kind of one of the primary ones that end users will interact with, we're going to look at the AI assistant in dashboards. Now this has come a long way. If you first played with this in the initial 11.1 release, which came out in which came out in what would have been October 2018, so a little over a year ago, and you played around with the AI assistant, you'll see here that it's come a long way since then in what it's capable of, and IBM's just going to continue to build on that going forward. So the first thing that you might do, and really in that 11.1 release, this is kind of what it was capable of doing, is I might say I'm interested in understanding something about the retailers in my business. I'm going to be using the Go Sales, our trusty Go Sales data in the demo today, so we should all be pretty familiar with that. So I could say something to it like show retailer name, right? Now you'll notice it has type ahead now, which it didn't have in earlier versions. So I can say, okay, show retailer name. It's going to pop up some information about a retailer name, give me some statistics about it. It's an attribute. It's aggregated as account distinct, right? It's a data type of text, categorical concept. It has low value repetition, so that sort of stuff. And then from there, I can start to explore further. I might say, okay, show retailer name, and let's say gross profit. And at this point, Cognos is going to build a visualization based on whatever it is that I typed in, right? So you can see the visualizations that it goes ahead and builds there. Now I can page through them. I could add something to the page. Maybe I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. How about retailer name by revenue, right? Or profit total, right? So it'll go ahead and actually I think it's acting goofy because I'm pointing to the wrong data set here. I was playing around with a data set earlier today and just doing some goofy stuff to it to try to figure out some things to do with Cognos, and apparently I'm pointed at that one. So let me just jump over to the one I wanted to use. All right, there we go. So I might say something. Now you'll notice that all of that stuff I was doing actually carried over to a new dashboard on a new data set. And this is actually kind of cool. This AI chat that you're having is persistent through the Cognos UI. Now in this case, I might clear that out and then say something like show retailer name and gross profit. And this time it's going to give us a chart that actually makes sense. Now, there's a ton of retailers in this data set. So in the initial 11.1 release of Cognos, at this point, I was kind of done, right? I would be like, oh, do I like that chart or not? And if I liked it, I could drag it onto the screen and Cognos would go ahead and render it for me. But now I have a lot more capability where I can say, okay, well, show me top 25 retailer name and gross profit. And you'll notice this time it actually applied a filter and a sort, which is something that is kind of new to the most recent release of Cognos. So if I'm interested in that, I can go ahead and add it in. And it's important to understand that these are just regular Cognos visualizations. So at this point, I can do whatever I want to it. I can change the filter. You can see it'll show me the filter there. I can change the visualization type. Maybe I say, you know what, Cognos, I really want this to be a bar chart. All of that, you can just kind of type in what it is you're looking for. Cognos will build a visualization, and then you can further customize the visualization to your liking. But I could also say, change the aggregation type. So show retailer name. Let's do show top 10 retailer name by average gross profit. And let's throw in United States. So here it's gone ahead and built a visualization where it's showing me that information, where I can take a look at it and see the top 10 retailers by, here's the province or state, here's the retailers, here it's got the actual gross profit that they have, right? So it's showing me where the retailers are doing business, how much gross profit they have, and the top 10 retailers that I asked for. So you really can tailor this to a much greater degree than you could in the past. And you can even go so far as you could say, oh, show me related visualizations, so it will build other visualizations that it thinks are related to this. Or you can say, create a dashboard from that chart. And at this point, Cognos has an AI that is its entire job is based on understanding the data, like understanding data and automatically building not just a single visualization, but multiple visualizations or multiple, a whole dashboard with multiple tabs based on whatever it is that you typed in. So now Cognos doesn't always get everything perfect, right? Like there are things in here, this chart's a little busy. I probably wouldn't have chosen to build this myself. But again, this is totally customizable. So at any point I can go ahead and make any changes to this. So this is a really good starting point. And for your end users, particularly your low sophistication end users who maybe aren't even going to go to the degree of learning how to build a dashboard, they could learn how to type in commands to Cognos like this and say, hey, Cognos, build that visualization, show me related visualizations, or build a whole dashboard for me. So that's kind of one of the first ways that Cognos is going to do this. Now, the two other ways that I would say, the first is going to be Cognos's ability to do predictive forecasting. So this is something that in the past you would have had to use something like SPSS for, or certainly Watson Studio. We still, if you want to do really powerful predictive forecasting where you have a lot of control over the forecast, you still use those tools. But to get your feet wet, what we can do is do something like this. So I'll add a line chart, and then you'll see I can add in, for example, let's just grab nest year and month into the x-axis. On the y-axis, we'll grab something like revenue. So you'll see it's going to do its Cognos thing. It builds this line chart, but then let's also nest in retailer type in the color. So you can see, we have our line chart built out. Now, a couple cool things that Cognos will do. One thing you'll see that it did is it went ahead and actually automatically reordered my data. So if I hit the back button twice, apparently, you'll see that this is not in the correct order. But once I add in this additional context, Cognos goes ahead and says, okay, I'll go ahead and properly order the x-axis, right, so that it follows what we expect as far as the months and everything like that. Now, when I click the forecast button and turn the forecasting on, that's when you're really going to see kind of the magic kick in, where now what Cognos is doing is it's actually doing a predictive forecast going out a certain number of periods to show me what it thinks is going to happen in the future. So in this data, our data cuts off in July of 2018. It's projecting forward to April of 2019 to show what it thinks is going to happen. And it even includes things like if I look at the options that I have here, you'll see that you can control things like, do you want it to ignore periods? What sort of confidence interval do you want to set it to? How far in the future do you want it to forecast? So by default, it'll forecast forward 20%. You can change that. And it also takes into account seasonality. So this is something that is kind of a little dash of that Watson Studio capability put into Cognos, where what Cognos will do is it is capable of understanding kind of the seasonal fluctuations that may happen in your data and then applying that seasonal understanding to its forward-looking forecast. Rather than just doing kind of a pure statistical look at it, it also accounts for that seasonality. You can see when I hover over any individual data point, it will give me a confidence upper and lower bound. And then if I actually want to see those upper and lower bounds, I can click on the individual bar here. And it will then project those upper and lower bounds onto the visualization. So that's something that just came in the 11.1.4 release. It's something that I know a lot of us have been asking for in Cognos forever. So to have it finally have it is really compelling. The other great thing about this is that it will actually show you. So when you look in the data tray here, you can see things like the visualization data from the Great Outdoors module, but you can also now see the forecasting statistical details. And so I'm totally upfront with everybody, again, as a BIDW guy, that I look at this and I, what does it mean? Honestly, I don't really know. Chris knows, right? And so I go to him when I want to understand something like this. But the important thing to understand is it's not a total black box. You do have some control over things like the seasonality and what confidence intervals you want it to use. But when you start to do this, and then it comes time to graduate to something like Watson Studio, you can take a look at, well, what was it that Cognos Analytics was doing? You can see this information, and you'll see there's really a lot of it here, showing us the different things that Cognos is looking at when it's building these projections. It'll tell you exactly what it's trying to do, show you this diagnostic, show you the seasonality strength. So for each of the various retailer types that we have in the Go Sales data set, it's telling us, for golf shops, they have a 47.1% retailer or seasonality strength, right? The strength of the seasonal fluctuations on that data, whereas something like an eyewear store is a lower amount of seasonal fluctuations. So you can use all of this to understand what it is that Cognos is doing, and then also use that to inform when you do take the next step and go into something like Watson Studio. What is it that you're looking at within Watson Studio, and how does that compare to what it is that Cognos is providing for you? Now, the final thing I would show, Cognos does also have this Insights button. This has been around for a couple of releases. If I turn that on, you'll see it will plot an average and highlight meaningful differences. So in this case, it's saying, here's the average amount. And then as far as a statistically significant difference, the most statistically significant outlier would be the points that it highlighted here, right? And that's pretty cool. And that continues to be enhanced as we go forward. But the final thing I would say that we can look at as far as can people interact with machine learning, AI, or predictive analytics within Cognos to increase that data literacy that you have in your organization is going to be the new Explore interface. So if we take a look at the Explore interface, it's kind of like a new studio, really, where I can jump in here, and you'll see that it's a very guided experience, even compared to something like building a visualization. So when I first pop in, it asks me, well, where do you want to start, right? So you would pick something that you're interested in looking into more deeply. Typically, that's going to be a measure. So maybe we're interested in understanding weekly earnings. So I'll choose weekly earnings, and then it will go ahead and automatically build a number of things. The first thing it will build is this relationship diagram, where it will show me how closely is weekly earnings related to other fields within my data set. So here I can see it's the thickness of this line represents the strength of that relationship. So I can see strong relationship to employment status, strong relationship to weekly hours worked. But there is a statistically significant relationship to the amount of time you spend socializing and relaxing, your education level, of course, your gender, right? These are the types of relationships that you can uncover. You can also choose to view secondary relationships, and that will kind of explode it out to show you not only the relationships of just the element you're looking at, but also the connections, kind of, it's almost like a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of exercise, right? Where it will show you, well, what are the things that weekly earnings is related to? Now I can shift my focus in here. I can set filters to say, I don't want to see anything, say, with a relationship strength below 21, right? And it'll filter those lower impact relationships out. But what I can also do is, you'll see it automatically starts suggesting visualizations that I might be interested in. So in this case, it's suggesting things like the relationship between socializing and relaxing and weekly hours worked and weekly earnings. Well, that might be cool. So I'll click the plus button because I might want to take a look at that later. Here it's got weekly earnings and weekly hours worked by food and drink prep, weekly earnings by housework. So it's kind of suggesting visualizations that are based on these relationships that it's uncovered in the network diagram that we're looking at. One of the coolest ones that it builds is this this kind of key driver analysis. So I'll add that too, so we can explore those. Now you'll see each of those gets added on the side of the screen here. So these are what we call cards. You can switch between the cards at any time. So here we're looking at that socializing and relaxing by weekly hours worked and weekly earnings. So what this is showing us is it's grouped people by weekly hours worked, for example, where it's got, and it's important to understand there is no grouping of that, right? Like Cognos has automatically created that grouping for us. So I never had to tell it that. I didn't in the data module or framework manager or something define a custom group that bundled up the weekly hours worked into various buckets. It automatically bucketized that on its own. And I can explore that relationship here. You'll see it's got this little indicator here is that it's got 3 statistically significant relationships, right? So weekly hours worked is correlated with employment status, weekly earnings, and gender, correlated with employment status and weekly earnings. So it shows you kind of in descending order the correlations in what we're looking at here, the most powerful correlations within the data set. If I want to see one of those, these are links. So I can click on it and it will create a new card to highlight that relationship for me. It's easy to go back and look at the original card I was looking at. But the other cool thing that it does is it has this details where it will tell you various things in English that it has uncovered in the data. And it's not just stuff that you're looking at. So I'll see it where it does things like I'm looking at education level and weekly earnings, and it will tell me on the side here what the most popular or most common education level is, right? And at no point did I ask Cognos for that information, and at no point did I ever even define a measure that was like a count of education levels. It automatically surfaced that information by analyzing the data for me. You'll also see here is, again, I mentioned that this follows you throughout the user interface. I have access to the AI assistant in here as well. So it's not just something that's in dashboards, it's available here and it's available in the stories interface. The final thing that I would show that you can do in here would be this compare functionality. So let's say that I'm looking at a visualization, and you can in here just build visualizations on your own. So let's say I want to build a column chart, and on the column chart, I'm going to look at education level and that weekly earnings, right? And it will show me that information. And I can do whatever I want to it at this point. Again, it automatically generates these details, but let's say I want to compare that to a different visualization. I can click the compare button and it will say, well, do you want to compare this to itself? Would you like to build a custom thing, or would you like to, compare it to other things that it's suggesting that we look at, right? So part or whole to weekly earnings top, or part or whole to weekly earnings bottom. So in this case, it'll give me, like, compare the bottom amount. In this case, it's looking at the bottom 30% of weekly earnings. It's filtered this visualization to that. On this side, it's showing me everybody. And then I can go ahead and you'll see as I scroll up on this bar, it'll actually create kind of like a reference point on the two visualizations where I can see how does this point on this visualization compare to the same point on the opposite visualization. And it will give me some statistical information between the two, where I can also look at, maximum, minimum, things like that. So the whole idea behind all of this, again, is to increase the data literacy of your users in Cognos, to give them a guided experience where they can start to work with things like machine learning, predictive forecasting, the ability to interact in using natural language with their data in a way that is easy for them to get into and gives you a very logical launching point into things like Watson Studio. And I'll tell you, if you're curious, well, how do all these things fit together? They're all, Cognos and Watson Studio are both deployable on IBM's Cloud Pak for Data. So if you're interested in kind of like a holistic environment that combines your data warehousing, data virtualization, data prep, data science, machine learning, and BI, including Cognos and SPSS and things like that, IBM's Cloud Pak for Data will kind of give you everything in one platform. So with that point, I'll stop here and turn things back over to Greta to see what questions we might have from the audience.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ryan. And Ryan, if you wouldn't mind giving me back control.
Sure.
Thanks. All right, so yeah, there are only a few minutes left and we have had several questions come in. So if you'd like to add one, please feel free to enter it in the chat window within the GoToWebinar pane. And while we are kind of pulling those together, I do want to mention just a few quick things.
Yeah, I'm attempting to give you control.
Maybe right-click, make presenter.
Yeah, I'm trying that.
There we go.
Okay.
I think I got it. All right, perfect. Yeah, so while we pull together the questions really quick, just a couple of things I want to highlight. We have a lot of events listed on our website under pmsquare.com/events, training, conferences, webinars like these, other live events, and just a couple exciting things coming up. First of all, we've got a Q4 training promotion going on right now. So if you head to our website, there's a banner on the top of the page that has discount details. So if you have some training budget to use before the end of the year, definitely check that out. We also have a live stream on data modules tomorrow at 1 o'clock Central Time. This isn't going to be a webinar like today's format. Instead, this will be a live YouTube stream through our YouTube channel, which is simply youtube.com/pmsquare. There are more details on our website if you want a direct link on the events page, so check that out. Also, a couple of live events I'll highlight. If you're in the Milwaukee area, be sure to hit up our Wisconsin user group meeting. We'll be there and we're presenting on a couple of topics, and it'd be great to connect in person. And then also for those in the Chicago area, there's a Business Analytics Roadshow hosted by IBM on Friday, December 6th. At their offices at 71 South Wacker in Chicago. We've got a few team members that are going to be there, and we're also possibly trying to coordinate a happy hour. So stay tuned for more details, and we hope to see you guys there. All right, so shifting our attention to questions that have rolled in. The first question we have, I believe, Ryan, what version of Cognos were you using for your demo? Was that 11.1.4?
Yeah, Yep, that's the most recent release.
Okay, great. And then another question maybe directed towards Chris. How can we convert our existing Cognos Analytics dimensionally modeled data models into a machine learning or AI data model?
So Watson Studio hooks pretty much into every aspect of IBM Cloud. So there's a good chance that you can either pass the model directly in as a PMML file, or if you have it resident in something like a DB2 database, you can then just import that natively right inside Watson Studio. No surprise, IBM Watson Studio works best with other IBM products.
All right, cool. Thanks, Chris. Another question for Ryan. Any recommendation regarding using a typical package versus using a data module? Would you recommend using data modules or traditional packages moving forward?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I'll address that a lot on. So tomorrow's live stream is all about data modules. So I'll address that a lot, I'm sure, during the live stream. But overall, my recommendation is yes, use a data module. I mean, at this point, I would use a data module for absolutely all new development. There's no huge rush to get off of Framework Manager, but I would start to consider what that migration path might look like. And if that's something you're interested in discussing, we can talk about it further. But for sure, attend tomorrow's live stream in order to, because I'm sure I'll get a ton of questions about that.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Another question, can Watson Studio results be pulled into Cognos Analytics for reporting, or would you use the dashboard tool within Watson Studio natively?
Right now, you'll use essentially the Cognos Lite dashboards natively within Studio. I know there are plans to have greater integration out of Studio, but the function of Studio primarily is to build a machine learning model that you can then deploy to WML for production usage. So not really using Studio as a visualization tool, other than for like ad hoc stuff and occasional QAing things. Its intention really is for you to build that model next.
Okay. Another question for Ryan. Is the Explore feature an add-on, or is that included in the latest version?
Good question. So it is included in the latest version. It's included at the Analytics Explorer licensing level. So it's not, there's no like extra charge to get the Explore feature, but you do need to be licensed at that level. So your analytics users, for example, wouldn't have access to it. Only people at the Analytics Explorer level would.
Okay, and we're already over. So just one last question. I think this is probably for Chris. How can you tell whether your training samples aren't biased in any particular direction?
That is a great question. So there's two answers to that. One, IBM actually has an open source set of libraries for Python, 6 tests to test your data sets for bias built in. And then after you deploy on Watson Machine Learning, the intended path is that you would then pass that production model to OpenScale. And OpenScale allows you to do things like declare protected classes, and it watches for model drift to tell you, hey, this model is behaving differently than you expected to, or if there are protected classes like age or gender or ethnicity, it will say like, hey, what parameters do you want me to alert you when the model is drifting outside of those protected classes allowances?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. Okay, so we're going to have to stop the Q&A right there. We've got several questions that unfortunately have been left unanswered. So we'll compile those, we'll answer them, and then send out a Q&A doc to all attendees. This webinar is recorded, so we'll also post it to our YouTube channel, same place where the live stream is happening tomorrow. youtube.com/PM Square. So if you want to go back and listen to something maybe you missed or share with a colleague, that will be available. So with that, we want to thank everyone for attending. This concludes the webinar, and we hope to see you at a future event. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.